Well, the puck has dropped on the PWHL season, and it's time to take a closer look at all of the original 6 teams. We're going to do a preview for you here of players to watch, storylines for all 6 teams, and I'm going to take a stab at ranking them and predicting who's going to come out on top. Not easy to do when you've got brand new franchises, 6 teams, and we don't know how it's all going to mesh. The other thing that makes it a little bit hard to predict is that each team is only going to play 24 games, so they've got to get off to a fast start, and team chemistry is probably going to be the number one thing, along with goaltending if someone gets hot. So let's get started, and I'm going to look first at the state of hockey, Minnesota. So the draft storyline is pretty easy. After they drew the number 1 pick, Minnesota was obviously going to take the best player available, who also happens to be a Minnesota native. Taylor Heisey just graduated from the NCAA, and she is just a fierce competitor and has a great future ahead of her. They had already signed their 3 players, Nicole Hensley, Kelly Panic, and Kendall Coyne-Schofield. Another local Minnesota product, GM Natalie Darwitz. The team was taking on that strong Minnesota feel. So as far as strengths and weaknesses, it all starts with just that strong fan base, getting to play at the Xcel Energy Center, and the great history of hockey in Minnesota all around. Looking at their goaltending, it's really interesting. They drafted USA national team netminder Nicole Hensley, so they decided to invite former Team USA backstop Maddie Rooney to camp and signed her. I think that's going to be the 1A or 1B, and that's going to be just a great tandem. As far as under the radar players, I'm going to look at Amanda Levier. She is Canadian, but she played for the Minnesota Golden Gophers between 2012 and 2016. She was the backup for Nora Ratu, and then after Ratu graduated, Levier took over the starting job, and they won the national championship 3 times. Has yet to play for the senior Team Canada team, but has played in their under 22. And as far as my prediction, I am going to slot them in second. They just have a great mix of talent at forward, those great goaltenders, and I'm going to put them at second. So spoiler alert, I do think there's a team that might jump on ahead of them. Next up, I'm going to take a look at the team in Toronto. And the draft headline is easy. It was the selection of Jocelyn Larocque at 2nd overall to make that formidable Canadian D pair with Renata Fast, but foregoing the scoring of Alina Mueller, which I think they could come to regret that. I know the reasoning behind it, and I can't argue with it at all. It makes sense, and especially the way their team was fleshed out during the draft and training camp. But I think when they start to look for scoring, you're going to wonder, maybe wouldn't Mueller have looked pretty good in this lineup? So they had signed their 3 players already. Obviously, we know who the captain is, Blair Turnbull, and they were able to grab Natalie Spooner as well. And it has a strong Team Canada feel with Renata Fast, Emma Malte, Kristen Campbell, and Victoria Bach. Coach Troy Ryan and GM Gina Kingsbury are from the Team Canada program, and they took goaltender Kristen Campbell in the draft, and that was the only goaltender that they got ahead of camp. Campbell was and is basically the 3rd goalie for Team Canada's national program, and so they are relying on the goalies that they invited to camp, Erica Howe and Carly Jackson, as backups. But they're going with Campbell, and in the training camp, her numbers were good but not great, and they have a great defense, so they're kind of an uneven mix. For under the radar players, I'm going to just say taking Victoria Bach in the 7th round is a real wild card. She did play for Team Canada at the 2022 World Championships, but she wasn't on the Olympic team in 2022. She went to Boston University and had 67 points in 33 games there, so she has a lot of offense to offer, but she has to finish up her degree before she's able to join the team, so she is right now on the reserves. So my prediction for Toronto is 5th. I'm going to put them towards the bottom. I just think the way that they've constructed this roster is a little bit suspect, and you could already see in the early games that they had a little bit of trouble when they needed to score, so that's where they fit. I don't want to start any rumors, but Sarah Fillier is due to graduate, and definitely she'll be the number 1 pick next year, so maybe it's, failing for Fillier or flunking for Fillier. All right, moving on to the New York team who played Toronto in the historic PWHL opening game, and they look great. The draft headline for them is that they drafted 2 goalies and made up just a great tandem with Corrine Schroeder, who is also in line for Team Canada, and Abby Levy. You saw them both start off great in the opening games of the season. They had already signed a great trio, and they grabbed Ella Shelton as their first pick, and she scored the first goal. It just kind of seemed seems like they're doing everything right. Their identity is scrappy and hard to play against. They don't have like game-breaking forwards, although you might count Alex Carpenter as probably the most dynamic player there. But they've got a sneaky, good young roster. And for under the radar, slightly, I guess, I'm going to pick Kayla Vespa. I just think she is a breakout player to watch. She's coming from the PWHPA, and she did play in the NCAA at St. Lawrence University. I think she's got a lot of sneaky good offense, and that kind of just fits the identity of this team. And my prediction for them is finishing third. So next up, we're going to look at the team from Ottawa, and the draft headline there is that they went all over the world. They have the most diversity and different nationalities on their team, but they missed out on the one player that everybody was really hoping to see go to Ottawa, Jamie Lee Rattray, who was drafted by Boston. And you could almost hear the Ottawa fans' exasperation when that happened. She was just such a natural fit there. That was definitely a disappointment, but they already had a great trio: Brianne Jenner, Emily Clark, and goalie Emirates Mashmeyer. Their first round draft pick was American defender Savannah Harmon. They've got one of the best coaches and best liked coaches in Carla McLeod. This team just has like a good feel all around. They've got the first Japanese player, they've got a couple players from Czechia, Hungarian player. They seem to have all the bases covered up and down the roster, and the best arena, I think the TD Place holds about 6,500, or it was a sellout at 6,300 on their opening night. And the team itself has really been engaging in the community, holding autograph sessions, going out to the minor hockey arenas. As far as my under-the-radar player, it's Katarina Mrazova. She is one of those Czech players that Coach Carla McLeod was really happy to have on her squad. She won back-to-back bronze medals at the World Championships with Team Czechia. She's just one of those hard-working, gritty forwards, and it's going to be great to see her get a chance to play with some more talent around her. They also grabbed one of the PHF favorites, Michaela Grant-Mentis, so just nothing but good vibes around this team. So they're going to be one that I am pulling for in all of their games. So my prediction for Team Ottawa, I think they could surprise, especially if Coach McLeod really does her job well, but I'm going to slot them in at number 4. Next up, we've got the team in Montreal, and the draft storyline there is a strong Canadian presence, and then the sneaky addition of Jillian Dempsey in the 11th round. They had already signed Marie-Philippe Poulin and goalie Anne-Renee Desbiens, as well as Laura Stacey, and their first round draft pick was defender Erin Ambrose, which is just a steal. They've got a great GM, Danielle Sauvageau from Team Canada in the past, and a great young coach, Corey Chevery, who I think is just going to be a natural great fit there with all that star talent. A player that we thought might be drafted but is actually a reserve player is Melody Daou from Team Canada, and she is also one of those reserve players attending college and, focusing on family, I guess, right now. So she's a reserve player, and I think she can be activated once she graduates. For under the radar, I'm just going to go ahead and say Jillian Dempsey, who is pretty much a Boston hockey legend, was drafted in the 11th round. She was the captain of the Boston Pride, and she committed to Montreal and attended camp and has looked good so far there. The trouble that I have with Montreal, and I'll just go ahead and say it, I'm picking them 6th. I mean, somebody's got to be at the bottom, right? I think that they've kind of got that problem of super high end, and then it's so easy to look to Poulin to carry a team, and she can certainly do that. Laura Stacey looked great as well in the opening games, and having Desbiens back there, they can probably steal games and maybe prove me completely wrong. But the roster looks a little thin on defense after Ambrose, so they're going to have to find a way to kind of keep the puck in the other team's end, and I don't see them doing that. It looks like they're going to struggle a little bit, just like with Toronto. When they need a goal, where's it going to come from besides Poulin? So it's looking like I'm picking the Canadian teams at the bottom and the American teams at the top, but out of the 6 teams, I think I see Montreal at number 6. And next up, it's Team Boston, and if you've done the math or watched the screen, this is my pick for the top team. Simply skill, top to bottom, talent everywhere. The draft storyline was that they got who they wanted. Alina Mueller was not drafted by Toronto. She had attended Northeastern, and she went to them at number 3. I mean, already adding to Hillary Knight, great defenseman Megan Keller from Team USA, and simply Team USA's starting goaltender Erin Frankel. Drafting Mueller is almost like drafting someone like Taylor Heisey. I mean, she's just pure offense, and on top of it, they have Lauren Gable, a great scorer from the PHF. Oh yeah, they also took Jamie Lee Rattray, who's gonna fit in. She can play up and down the lineup, as we've mentioned. I think GM Danielle Marmer did just a great job. They took Sophie Jakes, the Patty Kazmaier winner, in the second round, and they took another goaltender that I was hoping would go to Toronto, Emma Soderberg, the Swedish backstop. They got her in the 10th round. The under-the-radar player for me on Boston is defender Kaylee Fratkin. She was a camp invitee and a longtime member of the Boston Pride in the PHF. She was two-time Defender of the Year in that league and the highest-scoring defender in PHF history, 31, so she's going to give them a great, solid veteran presence on the blue line. There just are no holes in this lineup, and they've got some players that could probably break out and surprise. So a small question mark is just, with all this talent up and down the lineup, how does it work on the ice? Are all these players going to come together quickly enough to make it happen? If so, they're just going to be, to me, a lock for the top spot. I think a lot of people said that after the draft. They couldn't believe how well Boston had done. So if we line it up, this is what my predictions look like. Being a Canadian hockey fan, this is rough, but looking at the rosters and the way everything's put together, this is my prediction. Let me know if you have different thoughts and if you think one of these Canadian teams can jump up and surprise. I mean, of course, you could literally flip it upside down and it could happen. Those are just my quick takes to give you a look at what's happening with each of the 6 teams. I would love it if you would give it a thumbs up and drop a comment and let me know who you think is going to finish first. I appreciate the feedback so far. We've been working hard to cover this league for you. Don't forget to check out our brand new PWHL Puck Drop podcast, which is happening weekly. And that's a wrap for me. I will see you in the next one.